thanks everyone. I'm going to get started. I appreciate everybody's interest and everybody showing up, so we will try to keep us on track so that don't cut into anybody's lunchtime. Happy Thursday. It's great to be here, and I love the topic we're talking about today, which is feeding shoppers curiosity. My name is Jim Lucas, and I'm the Director of Strategy and Insights at SPK Inc. And one of the things that's really fun about this topic is, everybody probably has an interest in it. Everybody probably has a stake in this, and so we're just going to start right off because I think it's something that's so intuitive. So, first question: if you think, if you know what this is, kind of an interesting question. But on the left, you'll see what are basically sugar eyeballs, and on the right, you'll see a bowl of what turns out to be shaved gelato. And so, as you look at either one of those things, what it starts to do is it starts to get you to think, wonder what that is. And I think that's probably kind of the essence of curiosity in a sense, is it sort of drives us to look for something more, okay? It piques our curiosity, so it's almost as if it's an urge or a drive that we really can't, resist, if you will. And again, here we use the example of this. This is sort of a way to get into a gelateria that's Ice Cream and Friends, which is in Barcelona, Spain. Really an interesting place. The concept is it's Taiwanese made style gelato that's been super cooled at minus 25 degrees centigrade, and then it's shaved, and so when it's shaved into there, it creates a new consistency. But you can see that what happens with all the flavors, the way they've done everything from the accoutrements for this, like the eyeballs, to the way they look at toppings and the way the packaging works, all are things that could sort of serve to create curiosity and want you to ask more. Okay, so that's one of the things we're going to look at. Second thing here I wanted to go into, one of my favorites is Will It Blend, the series of videos by BlendTech, which really looks at and addresses the question is there anything that our blenders can't blend? Now this particular one is basically might be subtitled an iPad smoothie, where they take an iPad and put it in there and blend it. 17 million hits on this one. But I think one of the things that's kind of interesting about it is if you start to look at this, it has a way of getting people to come back. And so I think that's one of the things that's really key about curiosity is I want to go back and I want to say, I saw one of these before, there's something else I would like to see inside here. So again, it starts to set up that quest for more information, for more knowledge, if you will. And then, of course, one of my favorites, Weird Al Yankovic's Mandatory Fun video, which became one of the top albums about a week or so ago. And if you look at some of the key things inside here, the way the curiosity seems to work here is you're saying, he's parodied some of these things. So the above, the top video there, screen grab, is from his Tacky, a play on Happy by Pharrell Williams. And a second one called Word Crimes, is on play on Blurred Lines from Robin Thicke. But I think one of the things that sort of draws you in to say is, I wonder what they're going to say about this. I wonder how they're going to treat this. So again, curiosity is this thing that drives us to seek more information. And it's really pretty cool because you can think about how unique that is as an idea, right? And I think there are a couple of reasons why curiosity is really unique and why it's a fun thing to study, okay? It bridges the gap between the emotional and the rational. Right? It comes. The question is, does it come from inside or outside of us? And it's kind of yes, it does. It begins as an urge, but then it can become a quest. Maybe sometimes almost too focused. But and it can start off very unbridled or as an idle form of curiosity, and quickly turn into something that's highly focused. So it's this interesting thing that ties a lot of things together. Seems to have a foot in a number of different parts of our humanity, if you will. What is curiosity? So if we look to the right there, you see there's a clever sign that someone's put up to engage people. There are 2 rules for success: never reveal everything you know, and of course the second one is left as something to pique your curiosity that you will be searching for. But what cognitive science suggests is that curiosity serves as a stimulus for learning, for pursuit of the unknown. So we're trying to, reduce that gap between what we know and what we want to know. Sometimes it's a gap between what we know and what we wish to be true. So we'll talk about that as well. But I think that the fascinating thing about curiosity is all these different things that seems to be true about it, okay? It's also one of the most basic biological drives in we human beings, and it's a big driver of learning and discovery. It compels us to do things beyond sort of the functional need level. So in a sense, it almost like serves as this vehicle to move us up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, maybe a level or two when we're starting to think about things. So it turns us from consumers into explorers and shop discoverers. And so, it's a way of elevating much of what we do as shoppers, if you will. So we really like it. The other thing that's kind of cool about curiosity is that it's one of those things that we're all born with it, okay? So there's not a fixed amount you have at birth, and you can't go beyond that. And my favorite thing about this is to look at all the different things that, happen. So we see that the point to curiosity is a very basic thing. Even when we look at young infants, they start to talk about curiosity as almost a form of joint interaction where what they'll do is they'll point and they're trying to get people to sort of follow what they're doing. So we know that it comes at an early age. We also know that between the ages of 2 and 5, children ask something like 40,000 explanatory questions. That to me sounds low compared to my experience with my own children, but there are all these kinds of questions that are really interesting, and they're things that people are genuinely, that the person asking is genuinely curious about. So, when I'm 16, will all you adults be dead? What happens if my eyes turn into flies? What is time? How come I can't run away from my shadow? Right? If I'm made from a bit of my mom and my dad, where does the other bit come from? So you can think about all those kinds of questions that people do because they're trying to reduce that, information gap. So I think it's a really good thing, a very natural thing as we see. Now, one of the key things about curiosity is that, it can be both piqued and rewarded, and shoppers spend a lot of time and effort with things that they become curious about. So we know that curiosity is something that's important to shoppers. It's something that's valuable to shoppers. So we want to make sure we take good care of this as we go through. Curiosity activates the reward circuitry inside our brain. So the caudate nucleus is one of the key traffickers in dopamine, which makes us feel good. But also our memory is enhanced about curious, surprising new information. So we can just think about all these kinds of things that we can start to engage as human beings that really make us feel better about how we do this and how we're better able to receive these kinds of things. So I'd spend a little bit of time talking about curiosity piqued and curiosity rewarded. Curiosity can deliver a lot of dividends, and I think the thing that's kind of interesting here is that not only does curiosity represent a huge opportunity for marketers, but it probably imposes a little bit of responsibility on marketers as well, because one of the things we see is that we know that this is an opportunity to serve as a stimulus to get people to seek more information, to learn more. So we can design it to address people's needs. It becomes just that much more relevant. The responsibility is that once this is curiosity is piqued, it should be rewarded. And so if we don't pique somebody's curiosity, reward it once we've piqued it, it's kind of like unrequited love, or it's kind of like telling a joke without the punchline. And so what increasingly happens with people if they do that, they become frustrated. So it really is a two-part thing, and we know that if we can complete the curiosity equation, it helps us build a better relationship between a shopper and a brand, or a shopper and a retailer, and those are really key things that we're trying to do here. And these don't have to be super huge, but I think what we'll show you is, in some of the examples, is this pretty wide range of ways in which marketers can start to deploy curiosity to help their shoppers. Okay, so a couple of reasons why we should focus on curiosity as marketers is one thing, and it's really kind of key here, is you think about all the times we set up marketing plans and we try to say, how do I get into somebody's consideration set? And this is really a good way to do some of that, because we know that when we set it up against somebody's consideration set, it means we're going after something relevant. So it's a really good way to get inside there and think about it. If somebody's naturally going to pursue information about this, it couldn't be better. Right? Knowing what matters to a shopper is really a hallmark to being successful at doing this. And again, this is going to vary from category to category, but I think those become really key things in terms of trying to leverage the most out of curiosity. Okay, so let me use a couple of examples and sort of dive into these, because I think this is the easiest way to start to see it. So I'm going to start with some very simple ones, and in many ways some of the best ones, right? So we're looking here at Publix, right? And Publix is small is a regional grocery chain, basically Southeast, and they have a very solid offering in terms of what they do with their stores. But what they chose to do with their private label is they sort of wanted to call attention to it without shouting, right? So it wasn't so much a cry for "look at me" as much as it was one of these things that's like, oh, I get it. you're gonna create a smile for the mind. So if you look at things like their aluminum foil, where basically what they've pictured on there are some, origami pictures of, different things that you could do with aluminum foil. People sort of get it. They appreciate the fact that, this isn't the highest involvement category, but it does produce a smile for the mind and seems to do a pretty good job without really screaming at the shelf. And you can look at their other products, like their animal crackers, which is about sea lions and lions and bears. Oh my! And my favorite, of course, are the tall kitchen bags, because I can completely picture this, because it's one of those things that, oh, I see what this is about. So I think what they've done here is a really good job of starting to call attention, create curiosity, pique it around things that might be thought of as kind of mundane, right? You think about aluminum foil and kitchen bags, and they've added a little bit to them, and I think this is one of the things that people have appreciated when we've watched them looking at these things on the shelf, and it also creates a kind of curiosity where they want to look for what's the next thing inside the Publix line. So it does a very good job. Another example I wanted to use, slightly different, is, again, private label. This comes from Safeway Snack Artist. And here the way that seems to be working, which I think is really kind of one of the more interesting versions of this stuff, and it probably goes into things like we think about on everything from restaurant reviews to other things, is kind of the backstory here. And what Snack Artist does is that there's a great story in each one of these. So, and you can see, if you look at the right here front and center, what we're seeing is that Gimme Shelter is really about pistachios, and really there's a whole story that goes beyond it. And then if you sort of flip the backside, there's a story to go with it, right? So they'll also tell you, hey, maybe you should think about looking at our tuxedo, our sunflower seed version. Or, my favorite is they have directions about how to eat sunflower seeds on the back on the right there. Chew them up and spit them out. So I think what's happened here is that, the Snack Artist backstory creates a lot of curiosity in people, and it gets people to learn more about that. And it also probably starts to expand beyond any single product, which is kind of another useful thing here. So by piquing this curiosity around this one package, can lead me to other packages inside the line. So really nice way in which curiosity seems to be deployed there, and again, largely driven by packaging. A kind of another way in which we're seeing curiosity being piqued with packaging, and kind of an interesting one, and I got a weird mix of things here on the page, right, is what does it do? And so sort of on the top half of the page, we have sort of the cleaning stuff that you associate with, cleaning clothes or cleaning surfaces or cleaning other things. On the bottom part, we have, basically, exfoliators and skin cleaning and all that kind of stuff. And what's interesting about it is in both cases, you sort of say, wonder what that is. And, when we've talked to people about this, the desire is to figure out what that is. What's that thing on the top of that bottle? What's that thing on the side of the bottle? And so what it starts to do is it starts to create curiosity, and it starts to, when you start to, pique your curiosity and seek out after it, what happens is you learn a lot about what's going on with these different products inside here. So I think it talks about how it works. So it's a really good way to sort of get people involved in it. I only wish I'd thought of a way to do this for my own children when they were doing their homework, that it could be pique their curiosity more to get them to do that search for knowledge. So then one of the other things we thought was kind of an interesting one is curiosity addressing a need. And I think this is kind of one of those things where it probably almost focuses on not only what somebody's expressed need is, but kind of this thing about what we would want to be true, if you will, okay? So a couple examples here. Two of my favorites are focused on protein, and they're focused around men, okay? So on the right, you see Arla Foods, which is this, wing company, right, which is, shoots down hunger fast. And this is a great product because they did their ads and they put it together. It's, helping you man up against hunger. One of the taglines they used inside there was the manly chocolate milk for men with added man, okay? So you get the whole thing, and you sort of look at it and you say, I wonder what that's about, right? So it starts to attract you inside there. And I think, one of the things that's a really hot trend, probably everybody here probably aware of that, is protein, right? And so it's become one of the hottest things that's going. This is a great way to address that and sort of do the same thing with powerful yogurt, right? So, here we have a powerful Greek yogurt for men. Now, nowadays, Greek yogurt especially has been so successful. You have the feeling that you could put that on anything and it would probably make it more successful. But I think here, part of what's happened is curiosity is why would I be looking at a yogurt for men? So it starts to, put a question in people's mind that they want to address. So I think it's piquing a curiosity. It's piquing curiosity around the need or something that's really matters to people at this point in time. Second one, again, here to me is a host of products here, and I apologize for what looks like an eye chart, but we just wanted to sort of, call out what these things are about. Really what all these things are about is a guiltless form of indulgence, right? And so what they sort of do is it's like, hey, wait a minute, I got something that tastes really good, that's good for me, and I don't have to feel bad about it. Wow, that's kind of interesting. And I think that's how the curiosity around yogurt has worked, and especially like the dessert flavored yogurts, which have really done a very good job across the globe of attracting people's attention and probably seemingly meeting a need. So really kind of an interesting one. And again, this is really curiosity kind of being piqued around what we would like to be true, and then you want to find out if what we'd like to be true could be true. Okay. Another area that's kind of an interesting one, and I think some of this came for us through having done a lot of research with people inside the stores, right? So we'll talk about the curiosity of possibility. One of the things that sort of came up when we did some research with shoppers was we'd say, what's your favorite place to go inside the store? And almost hands down it would be the produce area. And what was the favorite part about it was about the possibility, the potential. Now, there was also a guilt-free aspect to it, so I would feel less guilty if I were going to the produce aisle than if I were, eating salty snacks or, sugared cereals or whatever. But I think one of the things that we saw here was about possibility, because the raw possibility that exists inside produce. And it's really a good way to create destination. What we're going to see here is a couple of different examples of this where we started to see how this can work in a lot of ways. So, one of the things we looked at is what we'll call category authority, and how it really starts to point out the possibilities and the potentials, if you will. So, everybody is going through an experiences where they've, almost every nation we've looked at around the globe has said, we've seen shoppers saying they've been trying to cut back on the amount they spend on eating out. And so we look at places like Nations, Fresh Foods in Toronto, or Waitrose in the UK, and they've really started to do a lot in terms of trying to bring this to life, in terms of trying to make it desirable and piquing your curiosity to see, I wonder what I could do. So what we like about category authority is that it seems to do a really good job of piquing curiosity around the possibilities or the potential, right? And even if you think about this need, this is kind of around the need to cut back on eating out. What's happening here is it's sort of focused on the positive here as opposed to the negatives of trying to manage your budget, but rather on what you can do. And so this is another thing that starts to pique people's curiosities we've seen. So again, it's a great job of doing something like that, if you will. The second one, again, about the curiosity of possibility, this is from ICA in Stockholm, right, where what they've done is they've extended the destination appeal of Delhi. And so you can think about all the potential things that are here, whether you're going to eat there immediately, right, or you're going to take this home. But what's great about it is it starts to look at all the potential that's inside there. And so what it piques people's curiosity is exactly that. And I think this is one of those things where you could see possible futures or possible solutions for yourself inside there. And I think that's the thing that people really enjoy about things like ICA's Delhi. It's a little bit smaller, simpler kind of idea, but again, an interesting one where this one comes out of Belgrade, Konzum, right, retailer in Belgrade. And what they did is they worked on the laundry aisle, and again, this was focused on, this was a joint effort with P&G and their Ariel brand, right, to try and bring something here. And simply by almost trying to make the shelf look like a washer, right, what they started to do is it started to increase aisle traffic or footfall. And so what's kind of interesting about this one is it's one where you've if you think about when you're in line there, and this is a category, if you think about laundry, where it's on people's list, but it's one of those things that's probably only going to be on your list if you are. If it's something that you need to purchase right now, the sort of this here is one of those things that sort of gives you a reason to visit. It's eye catching. It sort of creates that piques curiosity and say, want to see what that is. And so it's a great and simple way to sort of get more aisle turning, if you will, inside the laundry aisle inside the store. Perhaps one of my favorites, again, is comes out of the co-op in Stockholm, where what they did is this is like one of those things where curiosity has a couple of rewards to it, right? So you're saying, that's kind of clever. I never thought about it that way before. And actually, if I listen to this, maybe I will be able to save some time as my ultimate reward here. So what they said is, count to 3 minutes and you're the next person in line. So you can see they're trying to, talk to people at checkout, which we know is chronically one of the big issues that every retailer has to deal with. What we've seen is that if you look on the left there, you'll see there are two arrows. So one is about directs people to go to the left if you want to do your top-up shops, and those are things that are viewed as taking 3 minutes or less. If you go straight ahead, those are larger shops, maybe around 15 minutes, kind of like a stock-up shop. And then you can think about what they call the tiny shops, which are really on the right there, which are really the small things. You're just going in for one or two things, 10 seconds. And so what you can start to see is it's great about this is it piques your curiosity. You're saying, I've never thought about it that way before. Interesting way to do it. They've designed the store this way. So I'm going to see if my curiosity is going to be rewarded because great to save some time. So really a nice example of a retailer who sort of has probably figured out a way to, has a lot of empathy and a lot of understanding around their shoppers and is able to sort of take advantage of that and help, reward their shoppers' curiosity. And then kind of the last thing I want to talk about just for a few minutes is, promotions. And again, we focus on a couple of them from one retailer, but we think that this is a great way where curiosity can be used to get shoppers to take an action. Okay, and so what I'll do is I wanted to share a couple of these. So one of my favorites is Emart Sunny Sales. This occurred a couple years ago, but what they did here is they put a sundial inside, they put a sundial that worked only between the hours of 12 and 1. So when you were sitting in Korea, in South Korea, this would only work then. Okay, they had a real problem with sales between 12 and 1 inside the Emart, so you could basically fire a cannon and not hit a person in 12 and 1 normally. And so they targeted this very specifically to sort of go in. And so what happened here in terms of the curiosity, it's kind of a fascinating thing is, right, you think about, you see this massive three-dimensional sundial go in there, and you can look there kind of on the left, and you can see how it sort of works over time, and how it works in this one window, sort of in the center there. So what happened as a result of this, though, is that they saw a surge in their membership. So it's kind of like as a membership like a Costco here in the U.S. or whatever. And they saw a surge in membership, but they also saw a 25% increase in their sales during the launch. So by virtue of the fact that you could sort of go in, scan this with a QR code, and make a purchase, get it delivered, or you could make a purchase, download a coupon. If you went to the store, all those things were really good things, but it seemed like it was a very good promotion at generating both curiosity and calling people to action. So kind of a fun one. A second one that also comes from Emart, that's kind of an interesting one, is what they've called the Flying Store. And so the mission behind the Flying Store was really to make people who are far away, bring them sort of to the store. So how can we bring the store to them, right? And so the notion was that if we could create this flying store, which would give people Wi-Fi access, it would be a really great way to sort of, see how this is, a really good way for them to experience this, and, it doesn't really cost them anything. It's cost-free. And so there was a lot of people who actually did this, and again, it's one of those things where, people, out of curiosity, they tried the Wi-Fi connection, they downloaded the app, and so we saw pretty good results of that. You can see the YouTube version is sort of listed there. And what we saw is that, the sales went through the roof. Okay, so both online and offline sales increased pretty dramatically. So they also had something like 50,000 downloads that occurred in this one short period of time. So what happened is the rewards of curiosity for the shopper here were that this gave them access that they wouldn't necessarily normally have. And it also gave them a really easy way to sort of go in and order some things. So just wanted to sort of follow up and just, the key here that seemed to be on these promotions was that shoppers are being rewarded for their curiosity in a couple different ways. Okay, so let's start to close and then see if there are any questions. I wanted to mention that we'll probably make this available on SlideShare a little bit later, so we'll be able to contact everybody about when that's been posted. Takeaways. Really, curiosity, as we said before, is this huge opportunity, and really, if it's going to work well, we probably have to have two components to that. One is we have to provide stimulus to people, so that's the opportunity, right? To pique their interest that allows them to sort of address a particular need. That's kind of a really good one-two punch. It's a really good way to get their attention. Okay. The second part of it is we want to complete this, and so once we pique somebody's attention, their curiosity, we want to reward this curiosity. And one of the things we've known from looking at this is that when we complete the curiosity equation, it creates a lot of dividends for us, okay? And so we just wanted to take a second to look at a couple of those, but what you'll see is that short term, we think that there are dividends for the shoppers in terms of a couple of different things. One is it could be a smile for the mind. It might be a new way to rethink about a category. It might serve as a bridge to a new solution for them. In the short term, though, what it does is it gets in your consideration set and probably into their shopping cart. And I think that's the advantage of it for marketers, for retailers, okay? So it provides a kind of an enjoyable way for shoppers to learn about it in the short term and then take advantage of that. It becomes a useful way for marketers and retailers to get inside folks' minds and into their shopping carts. In the long term, it also plays a role inside this. Excuse me. So what we've seen is that for the shopper, this can fuel future curiosity. So if you think about it, it's like, I really liked, the Snack Artist products, which was the tuxedo stuff, so I'm going to try something new. I want to look at something new there, or I want to see what's new and different from them. Or I wonder what other things that Publix has in this kind of line, right? So what it can start to do is it can start to create curiosity around other products from that brand or other departments inside that retailer. And so we think that's kind of one of those things. It's a really good use of this because it provides a tool, it provides motivation for shoppers to explore and potentially find new solutions that are going to be useful to them. For marketers and retailers, you think in the long term, this can almost start to create empathy with the shopper, right? Where you start to, the shopper starts to think that you get me, and that you serve as this shopper advocate. So we think that there are a lot of dividends that start to create, that occur as a really great, shopper advocate for somebody. Okay, so I think we'll maybe take some questions now, and I'm going to probably take a look at a couple of these that I've seen come in. So, do we see? So one of the questions that came in, a great one, is like, question: do you see any downsides to curiosity? Any examples that you've seen that missed the mark? Just curious. Well, yes, of course there are ones, and we wanted to, just as we suggested that focusing on the positive is a better way to learn, get people to learn about your stuff, it's probably true about these kinds of points. But I think one of the things that we see that's really key here is, if we look at this, you can think about things that miss the mark will usually do it because they won't reward curiosity. And I think that's probably the biggest thing we've seen inside there. I don't really want to cite a specific example, a bad example of somebody else, okay? But I think you can sort of go in there. And one of the things that we've seen, this probably ladders into a question that's sort of following about disruption, is historically, when we looked at this, right, curiosity was this thing that would bridge these gaps, that would reward things. Disruption is like the first part of the equation, right, where I'm getting somebody's attention, but it's a little bit like, having three clowns come to your front doorbell and ring the doorbell. It will get your attention, but it's not necessarily going to be rewarded in a positive way. And I think that's the second part of the equation. So, in terms of the curiosity about what should be there, it should absolutely be something that, does reward the shopper for having taken the time to do that. Another question we had here is, is curiosity more of an emotion or a drive? Okay, it's an interesting thing because curiosity, as we said, is it starts to serve as a motivation, as a drive, as something that will motivate us to learn more, and it works on a couple of different levels. One of the things that was really cool about this that seems to be an interesting thing is that there are multiple rewards to curiosity. So as we said, there's sort of the dopamine that works inside your brain when you start to search for stuff and find it. There's kind of the reward of if there was a benefit or a solution or a new solution that came out of your search that's really useful for the shopper. So, it can have a couple of those kinds of benefits inside. There could be kind of an entertainment version of a benefit to shoppers as well in terms of being a smile for the mind. Okay, so one of the questions is, do you see the size of the retailer, small versus large, have any effect on the results of curiosity? And interesting question. I don't know that curiosity is limited by size, and ironically, I think that in today's marketplace, we're seeing that probably we should be experimenting with things that increasingly will work in smaller retail formats, because that's certainly where most of the growth area seems to be going on inside the retail concept today across the globe. So I don't think there's a limitation in terms of scale and what could be done there. And I think you can think about some of your favorite places to go. So my example would be, even if I look inside a department, I go to some place like IKEA and I look for pillows, right? They make it very easy for me. They create a curiosity in me to say, wait, you can make it easy for me to shop for a pillow? How? It's like, well, first tell us you sleep on your stomach, your side, or your back. And it starts to become a really clever way to sort of make it easy to learn that, make it easy to find the way through the category. And then I think one of the other questions we just had is, is there any kind of long-term effect that the curiosity can produce? And I think one of the interesting things about curiosity is it can indeed produce a long-term effect, which is if I start to associate a brand or a product line or a retailer with things that engage me and reward me, and I think then I'm starting to see the beginnings of a relationship between a brand and a shopper, or the brand and a consumer. And I think that's one of those that can really start to play on the relationship in the long term. And so I don't know that it's it's the most close, the most intensive relationships, but it can be one that can create a good deal of satisfaction and desire to continue it, if you will, in terms of what people are going to look for. Well, with that, I'm going to see if there are any other questions. I thank you for your attention and your time, and if you have any questions, you can certainly email me, as I'll show here contact me at jlucas@sgkinc.com. Any question else? I think we're good. So thank you very much, and I will talk to you later.